First up, we're looking for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion and support. Changes or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comment, you have 5 minutes to address the board. Please step up and give us your name.
Chairman Elwell, Commissioners, I'm John Tallis, Hanover Supervisor, but I'm also a member of the representing supervisors, the Traffic Safety Council. This morning on your agenda, you're going to take that under consideration. I think I've been part of this group for several years, and what I observe is that what is happening there is, as I spoke to you this morning, Dave, accidents don't just happen usually. They're generally made because of poor decisions. And a large part of Traffic Safety Council is teaching people how to make good decisions. And that weighs heavily in the work that is done through Traffic Safety Council and the management of the monies and things that they do. That's all I want to say on that. And then I would like to state that supervisors would like to remain as a member on this board and be an advisory part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Other public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. Next up are the minutes from the December 7th meeting. Motion and support. Changes needed? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up is the appointment to the Hospital Finance Authority. Current member is Tony Saman, and he is the applicant as well. Looking for a motion. Motion and support. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Tony's name will be forwarded on. Region 2 Planning Commission biannual report. Good morning.
Good morning. You have the report in front of you. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any significant highlights or any questions from commissioners on the very detailed 6-page report? I did have one question. Let me see if I made a note of it. I did not. Commissioners, any questions? That was easy for you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Region 2 Planning, the Jackson Traffic Safety Program, which we've talked about for some time. Steve? And also referenced by Supervisor Tallis.
And we have talked about this a number of times. I believe I came to you back in November and gave an overview of the program, of what we've been doing over the past 30 years or so. As you're aware, when the budget came up this time, the district court was short of funds, and there was funding available through the traffic safety program. This is set up by a $5 surcharge on all traffic tickets that go to Jackson County. And the money had been designated to come to the traffic safety program, and it was generating, when it first started, upwards of $180,000 a year. Now we're generating about $110,000 a year. $50,000 of the money that we generated, it was decided by the board that would go to the 12th District Court to help support staff. That would leave $60,000 on the board for us to continue working our projects with our traffic safety program. Our fiscal year for the traffic safety program had been the federal calendar year, which was October 1st through September 30th, which did not coincide very well with the county's calendar year as well. So what we're proposing to do is to continue the traffic safety program and adjust our calendar to make your calendar year, to reconstitute the Board of Commissioners so they are all appointed by the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. Since our program year started this year, October 1st, we had already gone ahead and awarded grant funds for this year to the tune of $110,000. We have carryover money each year where programs do not spend all their money, and that money goes into a bank account and goes to fund projects the next year. With our carryover balance that we had from last year and with the $60,000 we could get from this year, we have enough money to fully fund the projects that we programmed back in July for this fiscal year. Next year, we'll have to cut that down to $60,000. I believe we're funding 7 projects this year. 4 of those projects are for enforcement activities to give out tickets for speeding, for seatbelt, non-seatbelt usage, that type of thing, or for looking for underage driving. So over half of the grants that we give go back into the community for enforcement and for more tickets to help fund the program. I think I hit about just everything there. Again, this program has been running on these tickets from the 12th District Court since 1992. Prior to that, we had a $5 million grant from the Office of Highway Safety Planning to get the program started. In 1992, the program fell to us to support. We supported that with a $5 surcharge on all traffic tickets. We also receive a $45,000 grant annually from the Office of Highway Safety Planning. That is because we are a traffic safety program. That's the reason we get this grant, and that money is also for enforcement for Blackman, Jackson County, for seatbelt and drunk driving distraction. So, anything else? Any questions? You've got this in your board docs. Susan's here to answer any questions. We also have some members of the board that have been actively participating in the traffic safety program for a number of years. Does anybody want to get up and say anything or add anything to that? Guess not?
Okay, so go ahead, Julie. Well, so what we're looking for is to forward the proposal to the full board endorsing this plan of continuing the JTSP and the funding that you're talking about, correct? And then what's the process for the composition or makeup of the board itself? And I did see there was a long listed recommendation with it, and I assume that that's the current makeup of the board, the
Pretty
new
much
list
so,
that you
yep.
forwarded.
And that's up to your discretion.
So, Mike, I guess procedurally, would we need to take separate action at a later time to then fill those spots on the JTSP
Yeah.
officially?
Yes, what's going to happen in your board docs, you have a thing called a fact sheet. It spells out what the new board will look like, who's going to make the appointments, when they meet, and, the makeup of the board itself. And of course, what will need to happen is, we're basically using the existing board and positions, and as they expire, we'll be modifying it as they go, and replacing them.
Okay, Julie, do you have a question?
I'm just asking for, excuse me, a little bit intense there for a Monday morning. Just one clarification then, the funding of this program is simply, it's really just flow-through money with a $5 allocation. It's stated in here it's coming from the general fund, but it's not necessarily coming from the general fund, it's just the way the monies are being allocated.
I think because it flows that way, flows into the general fund from traffic tickets. 50,000 will go towards district court, and then the remaining 60, assuming there's 110 in fees that come in, would flow back to JTSP. Is that accurate?
And it has always been that way, Julie. It's always gone from the 12th District Court to the general fund to Region 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, we'd be looking for a motion.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Steve. Sheriff, renew the law enforcement services contract with Grass Lake Village and Grass Lake Township. Under Sheriff, I'm sorry.
Good morning. I have a item before you that we were looking for approval on from the Board of Commissioners. This is to renew the law enforcement services contract with the Village of Grass Lake and now Charter Township of Grass Lake for a term of 5 years. The dollar amount for those 5 years is $365,730. Grass Lake has contracted with us for many, many years since the late 1980s. They've had a different arrangement and a different type of contract than all of our other contracts do. As this was coming for renewal in 2016 in the fall, we began conversations with them and told them that this was going to need to be modernized and formatted as the rest of our contracts were. We started those discussions, and there was a discussion involving the Charter Township of Grass Lake and perhaps splitting services or coming into this contract. So typically, we had just patrolled the village of Grass Lake, so we are now going to, assuming this contract gets approved, patrol the Charter Township of Grass Lake. The village and the Charter Township will split the cost of this contract. The contract is still for 40 hours, that it always has been. We modernized our contracts, made several presentations to the village board and the township board. They have both approved this contract, and this is the same type of contract that was reviewed by county legal, by Curtis Law. Recommendations were made and changed. So we have this before you, and I believe the actual contract is in there. Obviously, this provides a steady source of revenue and provides for the contract coverage for 5 years.
Under Sheriff, I just got a couple of questions, and I'll say at the onset that I fully support contracting with any community that wants it, but when I looked at the numbers, one of the statements that's in the analysis, two-page analysis sheet says on the financial aspect of it that it provides for full cost of reimbursement for these services. Would it be fair to say if you looked at it by an hourly basis, a contract like the one with Grass Lake would be essentially the same per hour as Norval or not, or would it be different?
No, because as I said earlier, Grass Lake had always been kind of the outlier, and I don't know if that was just because of legacy issues or what it was, but they had a different type of work agreement, essentially billing agreement, which we saw that we needed to modernize that because it was not standardized as the rest of ours. Grass Lake did not have a fill-in, meaning we only billed per hour for what we worked, and that was the arrangement that they wanted. Of course, that's probably due to the fact it started in the late 80s. Our other contracts are not like that. So if you look at the dollar amounts that we collected, like in 2015, this starting cost for year one of this contract is nearly a 20% jump. So we had to find some type of happy medium between getting them near a starting point as the rest of our contracts and then incrementally working them up over the 5 years where it came very near as the rest of our contracts, again, to standardize those. Obviously, renewing a contract for service is a pretty big jump to go 20% increase, but we kind of gave a presentation to them as what the values were for those services. So that's why you see a slightly different price agreement, but it gets stepped up at a pretty high rate. Other than year 1 and 2, it's a 3% jump for every year in that contract. And they're well aware that there's going to be steep increases in that to get them onto a level playing field. So it is slightly different, but again, we had to find a happy medium between modernizing them and getting them to the point of very near the other contracts, but yet understanding they've been a very good customer to us for many, many years, 20 plus years. And obviously now with the township coming on board, it expands the area, provides more services to the residents out there.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Be looking for a motion to forward it to the full board.
Support.
Motion and support, questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the year-end report for the Sheriff Department. Sheriff, good morning.
Good morning. I will be speaking minimally today. I'm still under the weather. I've got a cold, so bear with me here. Kind of a review of 2015. We'll start out with a few numbers. Our average daily population is down slightly, but our number of intakes is up significantly, largely attributed to, I think we're just seeing a lot shorter sentences, more sentences, but shorter terms. We just changed our medical service contracts from coordinated care, served us for about 13 years, and we now go with advanced correctional health care. That modification has worked very well so far. We're about a month and a half into it, and very pleased with the result. We were concerned at first, but obviously change is difficult sometimes, but they've done a very nice job, and so far, again, seems to be working out very well. Our revenue figures, these figures are a little bit low that you see here in front of you. We're up to about 1.1 million now. I think it's been adjusted up higher than that. We keep seeing revenues coming in from state of Michigan and so forth. The reimbursements will probably keep coming in until probably February or March. So we'll continue to see revenues probably till that point, and I think Jim's already adjusted those numbers up. Kind of a snapshot of some of the things going on. 82 suicidal subjects placed in precautions, which usually means, that throughout the course of the year, that usually means isolation cells, intense supervision, sometimes putting in suicide gowns and that type of thing. Several fights and misconducts issued this year. And I know Commissioner Rice has some concerns about the suicidal subjects and especially the mental health issues in the jail. That's an ongoing problem that we have. Some days, depending on the day, we have upwards of a third of our population that is receiving some form of mental health treatment or acknowledgement of a mental health issue or on some sort of a medication for mental health issues. In the jail, we've got so far MDOC inmates enrolled in Jackson College, 27. All the costs associated with the college program that they're involved in is borne by the inmates. But we've got 27 people enrolled. It did put us actually in a pretty good position. They're scaling back some of the programming that they have and some of the farming out of lodging of inmates to county jails. That's been reduced significantly statewide, but I think we're in a good position because of some of the programming we offer. The high school program that we have, also obviously the Jackson College program and some of the other programs that we offer has helped us, I think, and kept us in play. Yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, do you actually have a professor there in the room, or is they're just doing online work in a?
This is strictly online. Usually a proctor will be there. Same as for like the high school program, we actually have a teacher come in, but it's online courses.
Each one.
And he's proctoring all of the students at one time.
So that is a JC staffer there?
Yes, and they have facilitated all of everything is there's no cost to the county, I guess.
They bring the laptops and?
Everything is taken care of by them, and we're very grateful. Same with the arrangement we have with Jackson Public Schools. That's been an excellent arrangement and continues to be fruitful.
Excellent, thank you.
New van is in service, just purchased last year. We're still looking at and we've got to send it out to RFP. You'll be seeing that document soon, but the jail camera system, we need to get camera system both for liability's sake and for safety of the facility that records. We don't have a recording system currently. That would help us for any future potential litigation. But you'll be seeing an RFP coming soon to request for a new camera system in the jails. Just some numbers there. If you want to peruse those, you can ask any questions you have about some of the numbers. Pretty consistent with what we've seen over past years, both for police calls, fire calls, and then total calls for service. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, just a point that I usually make, those total calls for service for all the agencies is inclusive of traffic stops, correct?
Yes, depending on how those agencies track those. And also keep in mind, other agencies may have different numbers depending on how, but you know that. Okay, this is what we dispatched people to or yes, you're correct. We started using our dispatch staff, Lieutenant Hammond started getting them involved or returned to Safetyville. The Safetyville program, as you may know, is teaching younger kids, kindergarten and first graders, safe pedestrian habits, driving habits as it pertains to bicycles. And we've got our dispatch staff involved in that as well to teach 911 skills and why do you call 911 and that type of thing. They've really enjoyed that opportunity. I think the kids benefited from it as well. And once again, we've exceeded state requirements for dispatch training this year. We are migrating to the Onondaga Tower site owned by Consumers Energy, thanks to them for their assistance in this matter. That moves equipment that was located on the Springport Tower site, the water tower in Springport, to the Onondaga site. I don't believe Springport will see any depreciation of their signal, but it will certainly enhance to areas like Tompkins, closer to where there's that low area that that has needed some attention for some time. I don't believe there'll be any degradation of signal in Springport. It should in fact enhance that because of the location on the tower in Onondaga. Emergency Management Grant Program, $76,000 this past year, actually fiscal year 2014 money that was allocated this past year. Some of the projects that we've seen, fire service countywide asked for a Petzl escape system. It's a repelling type system in the event that a firefighter or something is trapped in a building that they could repel out. We've got one pending that's a request for trauma kits in the patrol vehicles that will provide tourniquets and clotting materials and that type of thing, mostly intended for police and firefighters if they were injured out in the field, especially in the out-county area where the potential for, or the availability of emergency personnel is a little bit, time is an issue, let's put it that way. We did buy portable radios for dispatch staff in the event that there were ever an outage in dispatch. The radios are located in the dispatch center so that they could use the radios. If the radio system went down, it's a fail-safe, because if the link went down between the dispatch center and downtown, which is the hub, they could still use the portable radios to dispatch cars and even in transition to move down to the dispatch location, the secondary dispatch location at the City of Jackson. GPS units for law enforcement, FLIR units. I think this is a project in conjunction with the city that's forward-looking infrared. You can see a picture down there of the what the forward-looking infrared does. It helps track people in obviously dark and nighttime conditions. Cell data analysis device. You can see that pictured there. This is a device that we've been using for some time but needed updating. Available countywide, anybody that wants to use it. It helps us download cell phone data from all the various cell phones that are in use currently. We needed to update that, and that was another project that we put forth and was approved. And then the last one here is the EvacuSling. It's that was requested. I think that came from Health Department. You can see it pictured there on the lower right. It's to aid public safety personnel in evacuating people. It's a sort of a ergonomic type that you sit in this sling, and then with two people you can walk people downstairs or whatever you need to do to evacuate. Knox box project was completed last year. You'll recall this is the project putting Knox boxes in all the schools countywide, available for law enforcement, so that if they needed to gain entry to the school, they were all issued a key, every law enforcement officer in Jackson County, so that they could access the Knox box, which has keys to the individual facilities.
And Sheriff, just as a side note, our keys in Columbia will work at Northwest. I mean, unlikely we'd have to go that far, but
Right, they're all keyed the
joining
same,
district,
yes, sir.
right.
That's correct. Several regional local exercises this past year, been working heavily on active shooter and the run, hide, fight scenarios at the various high schools and even the college here in Jackson, trying to help those facilities any way we can to prepare for an incident like that. Assisted Springport, same thing. They evacuated all their people and moved them, actually, I believe it was to Western schools. It literally moved them off campus and simulated an actual event, and we assisted with that as well. Emergency management continues to be busy with the tornado drills, the fire drills, the lockdown drills. Assisted with Jackson Christian School. They had another similar drill, testing their communication system, and we also offered ICS 300 and 400 classes. I think most everyone here was probably at least received an invitation. You're welcome to come to those anytime you like. We'll probably have more classes this coming calendar year. Just updates all the personnel on what they need to know in the event of an actual emergency. Usually stakeholders, people like you folks, are involved in that process. Skywarn training, we started disseminating a lot of the local weather updates on social media and through email, and also promoting the OK to Say. This is something that came from the Attorney General's office promotion, and we're supportive of that as well. That's reaching out to the high schools to encourage people in the high schools to report crimes and that type of thing. Couple minor other issues. The Grand River oil sheen continues to be kind of a problem. That's an emergency management issue that we've seen a couple times. You'll recall last, I believe it was back in 2014, we had an issue with a release of what we believe to be hydraulic fluid into some of the drains in the city of Jackson. Every time we get a big storm, it gins up more of this, we believe it to be remnants, and so does the DPW of some of this release from an earlier date, and it washes into the Grand River, so you'll see booms down there periodically, probably in the spring again, until that all finally washes out. Patrol Division, you can see the numbers there, pretty consistent with past years. FOIA requests are just through the roof. There's a lot. We have one person that deals with all of our FOIA requests. You can see there's 2,500 for the year, pretty significant a number of Freedom of Information requests. Most of the other numbers fairly consistent with what we've seen in the past. Accident Reconstruction Task Force, we work with Blackman Township, State Police, and we've had quite a few this year. Most of the accidents, or actually about half of the accidents we've had fatals, have been actually private property fatals or on what I would say unconventional devices, not vehicles, but we had a dump truck on private property. We had a four-wheeler that was on a roadway, and we also had a horse and buggy fatal accident that we investigated on Luttenden Road this year, so very different from what we've seen in the past. And then we also had some pretty significant fatal crashes on the roadways, you can see there. Major Crimes Task Force, again, we work with Blackman, City of Jackson, State Police, and our agency, and work together on a lot of the crimes. Here's a highlight of some of those. Comerica Bank robbery in East Michigan Avenue. Brought that subject in and is being charged for that robbery. We had two suspects on Pheasant Run Drive in Blackman Township that did an armed home invasion, stole guns and money and so forth, and recovered the guns. Subject will be charged in that. Spring Arbor worked closely with them. We had a series of malicious destruction of property, stolen vehicles, just a lot of things that were happening in Spring Arbor. We were able to bring that to a close with a couple of suspects out there, including one 17-year-old who was in a stolen vehicle. And then the Francis Craig homicide's ongoing. Prosecutors charged 3 subjects in that incident, and I would like to note that homicide was closely related to the heroin trade in Jackson County, which is coming up next here. Narcan, something we just purchased for all of our patrol vehicles, pretty widely used throughout law enforcement community these days. Everybody's trained and use it. It's in every patrol vehicle. We have a kit that goes with us every day because of the number of overdoses. There's at least a couple dozen fatal overdoses from heroin use this year in Jackson County, most of them in the city of Jackson, but you do see them in the Out County area periodically as well. So we're hoping the Narcan can help with some of those incidences. And moving on to Marine Patrol, had 784 hours of patrol time, handled 20 different events on all of our lakes, and issued numerous citations, and also still did 58 hours of instruction in boater safety, which we feel is very valuable in getting young boaters acclimated to things and understanding the laws on the waterways. And probably most notably recovered a snowmobile. Our dive team recovered a snowmobile from the bottom of Clark Lake. Somebody thought it was a good idea to drive a snowmobile across the lake when it was not covered in ice. So JNet, again, you can look at the numbers there. The most notable number would probably be the one on the bottom, heroin. 1,200 grams have been seized this year. About 1/10 of a gram is a dose. So multiply that times 10, that's how many doses we got off the street. Not nearly enough. There's a lot of it out there ongoing problem with heroin. That's probably the biggest issue we have, in my opinion, in Jackson County. You can look at some of the bigger cases here. The heroin and the methamphetamine seems to be going together. We've had a couple pretty good, I would say pretty good snags from JNet, but again, it's scary how much is out there and how much they're getting in their seizures. It's, again, a couple larger scale busts that you can see there in front of you. JNet, working group of about 4, is doing a heck of a job given the number of people that are assigned to that unit. There's all of our reserve and volunteer time. You can see our mounted division put in a ton of time, helped events like the fair really come to fruition and be safe and enjoyable and that for everyone. Same with the reserves. We just passed or had a class of 6 more reserves and 1 more mounted division person that went through a kind of a mini academy that we put on. And we also have 200 hours of service that were given at the front window and helping staffing the front window, logging gun permits, and doing all the things that we need done in addition to the FOIAs and so forth at the front window. And there's the Reserve Academy. The Reserve Academy this year, by the way, was in conjunction with, which isn't typical, the City Police, Albion Public Safety, Stockbridge Police, and Mason PD. So probably in the future we can do more of these things and invite all the players in Jackson County that have reserve programs and even outside of the Jackson County area to participate in this program to try to get more reserves onto the streets and help us out there. Did Shop with a Cop, thanks to people like the Brooklyn Sportsman Club for helping us with that event, and American One helped us get out and present gift cards instead of tickets as well right before Christmas. Myers also helped us with that, but American One was the main thrust behind this. And thanks to Commissioner Duckham and people at Modern Waste, they jumped on board too. We really appreciate it. It was a great opportunity for our personnel to do something nice for the community, and thanks for making that happen. And I guess I'll open them to any questions.
Commissioners. Sarah?
I have a question, excuse me, on the additional costs when you have to deal with an inmate. Like you said, you had to put them in restraints, suicide watch, and I know that you forwarded me the information I had requested in regards to daily costs and stuff like that, but what's the additional cost for the inmates that you have to deal with in that situation in regards to some mental health issues? Do you know or have an idea about?
It depends on the extent of the issue. You could run into medical costs, prescription costs. The new vendor that we have seems to be working very well with the medical side of things. We still have some things to work out between us and Lifeways as to how they're going to, because currently they're only handling people in crisis. I'm not a believer in wait until it's a crisis situation to deal with it, but that's currently the status, and we're working with them and other vendors to try to handle the mental health issue. As far as costs associated with dealing with these folks, usually they're opportunity costs. There's a focus being paid on one individual when we have two entire facilities to run. So there's always that, and that's all the more reason why we need a better camera system that records, and so that we can document some of the things we're seeing. There's not a lot of direct costs attributable to it, but there potentially could be.
Well, do you ever have to have additional staff for those situations, like call somebody in? I mean, I'm just...
On occasion, especially if they need to go to the hospital, it's not uncommon to have the suicidal individual actually attempt an act in the jail facility, and that is what really costs us, because now you're talking about overtime, taking that person to Allegiance Health to be treated for their injuries, or sometimes some of these do kind of cross into the realm of being a medical issue. But again, had they been stopped before that, probably wouldn't have gotten that far.
Julie?
Sheriff, on slide 8, you give the statistics for calls for fire service. And when I compare two, let's just take Hanover Township, the number is 274. Then I look at Liberty Township, and we have 2,275. So my question is the data kept differently? So some are just for fire, and some are more welfare?
It's all in how you track the numbers, in my opinion. I'll have to double check. I want to double check first before I answer. I'll answer your question, but I still want to double check and make sure we didn't make a mistake
Sure.
on that number. But it also, some people will take a number for, say, a fire inspection or something like that. Just the same as Commissioner Elwell pointed out, a long time ago, we started tracking traffic stops, and then that made the numbers rise as well. Anything that goes through dispatch, and these are only numbers that the dispatch center somehow is involved with, or if they've entered them into the system in some way, and I can explain more later, but let me find out if the numbers that we're seeing there are, yes, sir, I'm sorry.
To clarify, there was a discussion at Liberty Township's meeting about it, Julie, and their numbers include fire rescue vehicles that go to car accidents on 127. Okay? And they have now gone to 24-hour staffing, one man, so they're able to get to those incidences a lot better this year in 2015. And get rescue vehicles out there to begin assisting vehicles.
That number still seems high to me, but I'll double check and I'll email you later and let you know if that's really the number, because that does seem high to me. But it's all in the matter of how active you are and how well you document what you do. I guess that.
Okay, other questions for the sheriff? Phil?
Thank you. Sheriff, it wasn't an uncommon, actually it's quite a frequent occurrence to see a report where meth labs have been busted almost on a daily basis. Have they lost their popularity? You don't seem like you see it much anymore, or is it kind of put on the back shelf because of heroin?
It's the latter, certainly the latter, because not that we aren't concerned with meth, but heroin is the biggest problem. Meth is still a huge problem, but I would say this, that heroin ties back to all the property crimes we're seeing, a lot of the retail frauds we're seeing. They're playing games with the scan codes at the checkout, the self-checkout, putting in a scan code for $1 item and taking a much larger piece of property and then selling it for pennies on the dollar. And they're also, cutting off the catalytic converters of cars and taking those to a metals dealer to get the money for that, and the copper out of the homes. All that's tied back to the meth and heroin use, but heroin is to me still the biggie. So yes, the latter of your answer.
So is you're still busting the meth labs, and they're just not making the headlines?
Pretty prevalent, yes. But they're doing them now in a 20-ounce bottle and discarding them by the side of the road, and we get calls all the time for that. It's ongoing.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions of the sheriff? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the JC State Trunk Line Catch Basin Cleaning Bid.
Oh, look at you. For your convenience. Morning. Thank you. Come on up. Oh. Yes, it is. Yeah, it looks like a MacBook, doesn't it? We are piloting a couple of these new iPad Pros, and we're finding that we really like them, especially with the stylus and the ability to write and take notes and so forth. So the smaller iPads we were using were rolling down into the working foreman and the assistant working foreman, so they can get radar and email and so forth on the fly. So it's part of like a 3-phase plan.
Well, big to use, though.
Yeah, it's big. So this is the first of a series, as you can see, of 5 different bid awards. These are just routine bids, things that we're trying to get a jump on for the season. This one here is for state trunk line catch basin cleaning. And we had
6 different bidders, and the low bid was very favorable. And this is all reimbursed by the MDOT contract. Estimated total cost would be about $45,000. And all of this gets billed to the state, and we basically clean what they ask us to.
Chris, actually, is it a 90,000 over 2 years, correct? And it's a 2-year bid?
It is a
So it
2-year.
won't be bid next year? Is that accurate? Okay.
Right. We like to lump as many bids as we can as long as we feel the economics make sense. And we can always rebid if we see favorable conditions or
Okay,
things
so
change.
You're looking for the full board to approve the
It doesn't say
2-year
full board.
contract? I think it does, being a contract, does it not, Mike? or- Yeah, it's multi-year, so
Okay.
would be looking for a motion. Support, questions, or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Baling Road gravel processing.
We have a current bid from 2 years ago to process gravel. You might remember I came to the board, I believe, last year seeking approval. Because of the dollar amount of about $212,000, we're seeking board approval. The bottom line here is that because we own our own gravel pit, we basically hire a contractor to come in and do the crushing per our specifications. And in doing so, we get about half the cost of what stone products would cost on the market. So we're getting $3.29 a cubic yard here for our gravel that we use, and then we get some railroad stone, some ballast type material, larger stone for $4.80 per cubic yard. So we're just asking for your approval to the full board to award this $212,500 project.
Questions from commissioners? If not, look, Julie.
Do you have it, Brad? Okay. So the product that's used here, is it only used in Jackson County, or do we make it available to others to purchase from us?
They've actually processed at that pit, some for Calhoun also, and Calhoun also has a bid for that. That's just two separate stockpiles.
Okay.
Brad, you have a question? Okay. Okay, we'd be looking for a motion to send this on to the full board.
Support?
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next up is the dust control bid.
Here we're asking for your approval to award dust control at a total contract cost of $145,000. I believe this is also 2-year, if I recall. I have to check my notes. Yes. 3-year, actually, 2016, 17, and 18. Frankly, we were shocked at the prices at 10 cents a gallon in Calhoun and 13 cents a gallon here in Jackson. Much, much lower than the competitor Great Lakes Chloride. So Michigan Mineral Resources is our preferred vendor for this contract. Seeking approval.
Commissioners, any questions? Julie?
Yeah, a couple of questions. This is a cost that's normally picked up by the townships.
It has varied, and we're exploring right now absorbing it as a maintenance cost. My philosophy is that dust control is a preservative treatment, a maintenance treatment for gravel roads to keep, it's a safety issue, which is a core mission given to us by state statute, of course. Airborne dust causes a lot of problems, but it's also, every time vehicles pass and dust flies up, you're losing your road slowly over time. So a lot of road agencies have proactively covered the cost of dust control. So we're looking to shift and actually cover that. I have to talk with administration and to all of you, perhaps at next month's study session, to confirm that.
Right, because townships are dealing with these issues right now in planning. So
Right.
off the top of your head, do you recall what you charged the townships last year? And again, I know some choose to have one spraying opportunity, and some have two.
Right. It was, I think it was the 70-30 split. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes, it is. So
And that was
it really
consistent with
depends
past
on the township
practice.
is what they asked for, whether they did one application or two, and that was 70-30 split for 13 cents a gallon.
Which was part of the conversation when you started the 70-30 split. You were trying to be very fair and equitable and transparent, and that caused many conversations and discussions as well, because townships didn't know that the county had been picking up a piece, and
Yeah.
so we're making progress. So now I hear you to say that you are willing to entertain a conversation as to if this could be included in maintenance of roads.
Right, it is a policy decision on your part, and we're formulating our recommendation, which we'll be bringing forward to you. So I'm looking at the budget analysis right now, and I believe we can sustain, especially with these favorable bid prices, that we can sustain covering these maintenance costs. It's akin to patching roads. It's just something we bear as part of our budget. So,
And would a township still be allowed to choose once or twice? Obviously, if they don't have any expense, they would probably choose twice, wouldn't they? So do the majority of townships choose two springs?
No.
No?
That's kind of across the board, but this would give us the opportunity to do it both times. They would stop that, like where one township does it, and then halfway down the road, it turns to dust. And we can grade half the road, we can't grade the other half because we brined it. This way we can brine the whole thing, we can maintain it as we need. Stop that checkerboard effect. And
I grew up in a world in Iowa where gravel roads were king. They have more gravel roads than you can shake a stick at, essentially. When you look at an aerial photo, it's a very dense network of gravel. And I have two young drivers right now in my household, and if they're driving along with dust control and then switches to no dust control and back, it's a change in driving conditions that's off again, on again, off again, on again. So there are a lot of reasons that, for safety concerns and so forth, that we want to have consistent dust control patterns on our gravel roads. If you go to some states, North Dakota, South Dakota, it's just what they do, and they really are very good at gravel roads. So,
Okay, and to be clear, this contract really isn't about who pays for it, it's what the cost is on a per gallon basis, probably, correct?
yes.
so how we actually build townships, that's a secondary discussion, but the bids are in, we know the cost, which helps us to make that decision.
Okay.
So,
And you did say it's what, 3-year contract?
it is 3 years, yes.
So we'd be looking for a motion if there's no more questions. Motion and support, and all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Local road catch basin cleaning, similar to the state trunk line one, correct?
It is, in fact. Did you want to say anything on this, Bob?
It's pretty much identical, same vendor even, same cost, well, a little bit different cost, but it's the same process for the county roads, it's just instead of the state trunk
More
lines.
catch basins local than state, correct?
Right. These would be our subdivisions, I believe, for the townships.
All the curb and gutter that we have. yeah.
Curb and gutter areas. We have a very good program where we're ahead of the game. A lot of counties fall behind in this due to budgetary constraints, so our staff has done a great job of staying ahead of this, where catch basins are not full and sediment burdened and full of debris, essentially. So it's a very good program. It's part of best management practices for stormwater quality management.
Be looking for a motion if no questions. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Primary and local roadside mowing bid.
Mowing is one of those things that can be a high-quantity item that a contractor can do faster, better, and at a lower cost. As we look at this is a request to award a bid of an annual cost of $102,144 for roadside mowing throughout the county. I want to emphasize that this is just the single pass along the shoulders. So it's that 6-foot swath that they just do a quick cut. And that's something we like to do, how many times a year, Bob? Is it
Normally twice.
twice, for sure, sometimes a third, depending on the rain and so forth, and if we can afford it in the budget. The second and third phase mowing, which is the equipment that we'll be asking you approval to buy, would be the 4 slopes and some of the brush that is infringing on the roadway. So phase 2 would be the 4 slope mowing, which is a different type of mower. That's something our in-house crews should do. We just don't seem to get good responses from contractors on that. And then the boom mowing, which is the back slope and some of the encroaching brush that starts to grow in on the roadway. So those items are something we do in-house, but this is the fast and furious mowing that this particular contractor does a great job at, and frankly, if you look at the bid tab, they came in at about half the cost of the competitor at $45.60 per mile. So we're very happy with that, and that is a 3-year bid.
So Chris, to be clear, this is for just the first time mowing 6-foot swath, primary and local, correct?
At first phase mowing, I would call it, out of the 3 stages of mowing, and it's done multiple times a year, though,
Okay.
as needed. And it's a 3-year award.
questions from commissioners? Julie?
Looking at the bid specs, so their initial bid was $48, but if both counties moved forward with it, it was $45.60. Am I correct thus far?
That's correct.
So this is another example of how the collaborative effort in bidding with the two counties has saved us money.
Absolutely. Yep.
It could have been bid out, that someone could have obviously bid on just one county and not both. Any concerns? That's a large amount of roadside to be mowed. That is a good thing, that we're saving money, but it's a larger area. And any concerns there?
With this contractor and the capacity to do the work, you mean?
They've got the crews and equipment to do both counties.
Yeah, I've worked with this contractor in Cass and St. Joe as well as here, and they do very good work. They're very responsive when we have problems and issues. So they come highly recommended.
Okay, if no more questions, we'd be looking for a motion. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Lastly, the JC monthly report.
Got a couple maps for you.
Chairman
Give it the
Elwell,
board.
with your permission, I would like to submit the maps that are part of the report in
Need a
paper
motion to
form.
receive.
Both of them, or-
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you. That map is in electronic form with my report as an attachment, but I figure you might like to have the 11 by 17 version in color as well. Brief report this month. December has been fairly quiet with winter storm response primarily, our primary focus. Tree and brush trimming has been a second issue that keeps us very busy. We have 3 tree crews right now out in full force, preparing for next year's road projects. And I'm real proud of our team for getting ahead of the game on that. Over the years, we have fallen behind on tree canopy trimming. You'll drive many roads and you'll notice the encroachment of trees and brush. Just Mother Nature dictates that foliage loves open space, open areas, and above the road is where they migrate over time. So we are behind in that regard. And as part of every project, I have a complete roads philosophy where we want to attack signs as well as brush and so forth as part of each project. One thing we're doing differently is instead of the bucket trucks, we're using, what do we call them, the genie lifts? The-
Man lift, two-person man lift.
Right. And that was part of our proposed purchase as well. Right now, we're leasing, and all the lease costs can be wrapped into a purchase. We've been given those assurances from the vendor. Storm response is fleet condition. Bob, please chime in, but we're in good shape with the downtime on our equipment at only 3 to 5 trucks per event, and you've been able to get those trucks right back on the road, correct?
Most of them been minor things this year. The fleet's been prepared well, so we've had a good, easy winter. But on average, we've had like one truck break that was kind of like a hard break, but the rest have been like cycled out quickly. So been a good season so far.
If somebody wants to knock on wood, I'll pause twice. We only have 2 in the shop this morning, you said, right?
Yes.
So this recent storm event's been good as well. New glider kits, we're expecting those in here in February, hopefully by late February. They're in full swing getting built, and those have the dual wings for the state trunk lines, which we're excited to see and use on our exit and entrance ramps on the interstates and so forth. Fixing the American Surface Transportation Act, the FAST Act, I won't jump to it now, but there's a fact sheet attached to my report that gives you kind of the bullet point rundown on what all that means with federal funding. There's some good news and some bad news in it, and I'll share that in a moment. I'll come back to it. The map you have in front of you, which is also on the screen, is the results of a meeting we had this last week in Lenawee County. We had our Region 2 Rural Task Force meeting. So as has been promised and passed, I'm showing you proposed preliminary projects so that you can inject some input. This is what our staff has put together and recommended for projects with that particular funding source. The 2018 project is Norval Road from East Michigan Avenue to Fall Road, 2.25 miles at a cost of $627,000, and that is a cold mill and a resurface. Those are not noted on the exhibit. This is just a draft exhibit. So the 2018 project is a cold mill and resurface, so that'll be a new asphalt surface. In 2019, jumping across to the west side of the county, we have West Michigan Avenue from West Parma Village limits to M99. And that's 5.5 miles, which is a wedge where we repair the asphalt surface, and then we chip and seal and fog seal the road. Basically buy some life out of that road with these repairs. Allows us to stretch our dollars further.
Chris,
Yes.
all three of these projects, are those mostly federal dollars or state dollars and some local, or,
These are federal dollars that come through the Rural Task Force channels.
so no local match of any kind on it, or small?
They're 80-20, so it's 20% local match.
Okay.
Yes. And Norville Road from Fall Road to Robbie Road is 2.25 miles, $719,000. That's a cold mill resurface, but that has some culvert replacements in it. So even though it's a short stretch, we have at least 3 culverts, I believe, Bob, that we need to get at that are fairly large in size. So we've got a little money in the project for that. So you can review and get us comments on this. It is just draft at this point in time. I believe there's no more action required at the local level. However, if you wanted to make changes, there's still time to do that. Any questions on that particular item?
You used the word local, you said match, and my question would be a county match or a township match?
We can use, these are primary roads, so we can use Act 51
Okay.
funds.
Thank you,
for
that's,
that.
we want a
Yeah,
clarification.
which has been budgeted already, for, at least for this coming year, in our 2016. I guess these projects don't start until way out, so they will be budgeted, I'm sorry. But the Rural Task Force program, and I will get you a map of what we're doing now for 2016 and 2017, that program is already approved and so forth. We're in the process of making those maps, so you'll get that information soon. Jumping back then to the FAST Act, and going to that fact sheet, which is scrolling down. Basically, that was signed into law by President Barack Obama. I'm trying to jump here between screens on my machine, bear with me. Here in December 4th, and it's a 5-year bill from 2016 to 2020, and all I can really say is finally, it's about time. This has been kicked around for quite a while, as MAP 21 has expired and been extended and so forth. It's a $305 billion bill, it's huge, and the breakdown's listed there, but every state receives a 5.1% increase in funding, which is great news for us for 2016, and then averages of 2 to 2.4% for the remaining years. There is no proposed increase in the federal gas tax or the diesel tax, which was last increased in 1993. And that basically brings the bad news, which is the last bullet point far down, that there is a looming problem of, being underfunded. But I just want to point out that the state of Michigan will see an increase of $50 million this year. So that's very, very positive for the state. And we get a small smidgen of that through our Rural Task Force programs and so forth. That's basically the money that comes through for bridges, also the JAX program and so forth. So basically it's channeled through all those grant programs. So I can get you details on this if you're more interested, but I want to at least get you this fact sheet and let you know, I guess, the good news that we will see an uptick in revenues from federal sources. But as the last bullet point shows, according to economic pundits, the FAST Act really just kicks the can a little further down the road. The deficit for the Highway Trust Fund will go up to $178 billion, and without any further changes, its reserves will be gone in 2021, which is just around the corner. And that requires $100 billion just to keep it solvent for the next 4 years. So there is a problem for the feds to solve here in the near future. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Bob. Next up is the Administrator Controller with a 911 fee May ballot proposal.
Thank you. I think everyone is aware that we were not able to make it into the March. We're looking to go to May. We need to approve ballot language by February 9th. So frankly, we'd like to see it approved next Tuesday. I'm sure you've all had opportunity to read through this. We're looking for, frankly, $1.50. Moving it up. Questions? Sure.
There.
I checked with the clerk this morning on costs of this, because this is the only thing in our county other than, she said, Chelsea Public Schools has something, but did we budget for this election when we did the budget last year for the special ballot proposal? Because, like, this is an additional cost to the county, like $25,000 to $30,000, just to have this election for this phone vote. That we originally didn't budget for, because we didn't expect to have it wasn't a planned election.
We
Or did
planned
we?
to do this election.
Okay.
Well, but isn't it fair that we originally planned on doing it during a presidential,
August?
but we
Well, yes.
determined that we could not,
Right.
which would have been at no cost to us, correct? Well, it's Mike's project here, but I think the reality is that we also, in fact, budgeted the money for this year, assuming that it's passed by the voters, to start collecting it in August, am I not mistaken? July. So I guess, Sarah, I'm not sure what's the alternative that you see, waiting until the August primary, or you just,
I'm just asking, I mean, I know that we did budget anticipating, it's just, it seems,
It's not our first choice either. It's
Right.
just,
I think we're just stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, it's something that needs to be done, but at the same time, it's just one of those things, it's gonna cost us a little money to be able to, make this work and make our general fund budget work.
well, and certainly if we need to adjust the budget to account for the increase to the clerk for elections, I'll be supportive of that when it comes to us, if we in fact make the decision to put this out there for the voters to vote on. I've got one other issue with it, or really point with it, that I have been talking with the administration on. And, we had some pretty good conversations at the study session, and Julie had actually raised the point initially about the language that was in really the PowerPoint presentation about additional equipment grants for other agencies. And it's my strong belief that if this proposal passes, that from those proceeds, the equipment to send emergency services through dispatch should be paid for by the county. It shouldn't be having to come with hat in hand and seek a grant to do that, to figure out if you're going to get it or not. And I think that in talking with the administration, there's anticipated to be adequate funding to be able to do that. Is that a fair statement, Mike? And I, in my conversation, had asked that we, assuming that we forward this proposal, that we include either that statement or that language. And I think to an extent that intent is listed in the 4-page document that the administrator has put with this issue. But I think in the resolution itself, it's not quite as clear. And when I look at the resolution, when I look at the last whereas of it, the last part of the last whereas says to provide an adequate and equitable financing mechanism for the needs for the Jackson County 911 Communications Center. I think the language should be a little bit more inclusive than that to capture the intent that I'm hopeful that most of us have here. As we had talked in the study session, we're looking for the community to increase really a fee on themselves. We're allowing them to do that, and we're also looking to our partners in other governmental units in the county to support that proposition. For instance, my community is Blackman Township that I serve, and they have clearly stated that that's their expectation if they're going to support this, that they want it clear that the equipment that's used to dispatch and communicate with dispatch, which would be radios and probably MDCs, be purchased by the county if this proposal passes. And I believe that that intent should be clearly stated, whether we're saying it here as a group or the Board of Commissioners, really. And I really think I'd be most comfortable if we had language in that last whereas that was more inclusive of that thought process. And you agree that it could be a little bit more inclusive of that, capturing that thought?
Yes, I agree. I mean, I agree with the concept, what you're proposing. I'm just thinking of different ways of wordsmithing that to, you don't want to get specific, you want to be broader, that we can include, because in our discussions, it's basically been, we want to be able to fund
The necessary equipment.
whatever it takes to bring bring public safety,
Emergency services, right?
emergency services to the scene.
Well, and.
That's radios on both ends, is what
Right,
it comes
and we,
down to.
and when we had talked about that, there's no language that we can draft now or should draft or include that would 100% nail it. I think the best we can do is speak to what the intent is. And, you know, the procedure or process later would have to be laid out. But again, I think that, you know, what we put forward and ask our communities, plural, to support, needs to be fairly clear in that regard, that this is what our intent is. And I guess I'm asking the rest of the committee here what your thoughts are on it. Julie, you started to raise your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues going on here. First of all, Mike, let's go back to Sarah's point. It was originally discussed and when in preparing for the budget for 2016, for it to be on the May ballot, but originally there was going to be no additional cost to the county, correct?
Our thinking initially that it wouldn't be additional cost to the county.
And what changed?
We're not allowed to have an election there. There's no other.
We can't
there's no-
attach, and you're absolutely sure on that, because I've heard it both ways.
Well, the deadline's
I
passed if
think
you're
it's-
talking about March.
Yeah, and I think it's actually bounced back and forth on whether you can or cannot. Is that true and accurate? About including an issue like this on a presidential ballot?
It was, there was some.
Right.
Okay, so moving forward, we're looking at May, and what do we know to be on the ballot in May?
I don't know of anything on the ballot other than this.
Okay, so understanding that May would be the next option, and following that would be August. Now, I understand there's 3 months in which fees, assuming it would pass, fees could not be collected if it was no.
No, it doesn't quite work like that. If we don't notify them literally 3 months before the July, for instance, if we do this vote, say in August, we can't collect any fee until the following July. Only once a year, that window, can you change it. That's our understanding, at least. You agree, Mr. Brown?
Yes, and I sought clarification from our attorney about that, and we received that in writing, that you can only increase it once a year, and that would be at the July date.
Go ahead, Julie.
So that's one issue. The other thing, we continue to read about the new legislation that was enacted last week by the governor, signed on the 7th, which is Public Act 269, which states 60 days prior to any bond issue being presented, elected officials can do nothing to educate, also promote, granted, we would all agree with that, but not even to educate. So although they're talking about modifying that here, I've got major concerns there. Then who is going to be the champion of this issue?
Julie, I don't think that's 100% accurate. I think what you said was that elected officials can do nothing to promote. I think, I haven't read the law, but I think the intent is that tax dollars not be spent to do it. That doesn't prohibit you or I from talking about it. But
That's my understanding.
right.
That's my.
Now, that does still certainly hamper us from,
We're not allowed to spend dollars, so we
Right.
couldn't send out, newsletters or what have you, buy ads, if you will, or something to that effect.
You can't speak.
As a for instance.
I'll go back to speak, that my understanding is even speak of. So anyways, but again, it's just another concern.
Well, I guess, in that regard, even taking worst-case scenario, the way you said is 100% accurate, I mean, what do we have left to do? We can't not do something. Speaking to the amount of the fee itself, we're at, 42 cents now, I think, or 44 cents? And, I'm not typically one to say, well, look what so-and-so is doing, but you have other counties that are higher than $1.50 right now and looking to double theirs. And, what we're asking the public to vote on is not that far out there, and especially when you're talking about emergency services. So, again, speaking for myself, if we move this forward, I would like to allow the administrator the latitude to change that one paragraph to come up with some better language that more fully encompasses what I believe the understanding is. And if I need to, I guess I can make the motion. If there's a motion somebody wants to make, that's fine, but hopefully we can include that latitude. You will support that? So you're going to make the motion, Julie? Okay, I'll also move to forward this proposed resolution and the issue to the full Board of Commissioners with the understanding that the Administrator's Office will work to tweak that specific language regarding what the use of the funds will be for. And you support that, Julie? Yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. And I appreciate your indulging my lengthy comments. Other business, we need to pay the claims. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Other minutes and the February reporting schedule, and takes us back to public comments again. Public, anybody from the public like to speak, step up to the microphone. Seeing none, committee member comments. Chairman Chatwa.
I'd like to make the commission aware of and the public aware that the Board of Commissioners in the past have done their due diligence on up to 3 different millage proposals in my opportunity to serve here with Commissioner Alwell and other commissioners, and we've never spent money to educate the public. We've gone out as responsible leaders of the Board of Commissioners and carried the message forward and spoke positively of it, and the burden has always been with us. Once the board has spoken, that whether you vote against the resolution or vote for the resolution, you're out there in the community working hard to carry the message forward that this is a positive thing and that we've looked at all the alternatives possible to come to this conclusion. I think that the community has indulged us with a sheriff's millage in the past, 2 Department on Aging millages, millages to assist the medical care facility, and we don't go out and do this every year. We don't go out and do this every other year. I think it's been close to 6 years since we've even asked for a millage in anything other than the Department on Aging, which was a renewal. So I just think that we really do our homework, and we as commissioners are the champions of these projects, and that's my belief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, along the same regards, I don't take putting an issue like this out there to the public lightly. I, in fact, caught some grief from my local board with my unwillingness to put a countywide transportation millage out there. I don't support doing that. They didn't like that. So I don't take these issues lightly either, and I had some concerns with it that I spoke with leadership about and the administrator's office about, which I voiced here, and I'm satisfied that at this point it is the right thing to do. Sarah?
We keep talking about millages, and I just want to make it clear, this isn't a millage. I mean, it's a fee increase. We could be asking for a millage. I think that'd be a little extreme right now, but I'm supportive of this measure as well. I mean, we have counties right next door that have the fees and a millage, so we could be in that boat, and I think we're very fortunate to not be in that boat. And you know, it's hard for me to even fathom a community that would say no to public safety. So, I mean, obviously, when I'm out and about, I will be supportive of this line fee issue, not millage.
And Sarah, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I think any of us here, if we thought this was not appropriate, we wouldn't let it go to the voters, which is my position on the actual tax for a transportation millage. So I agree. I appreciate everybody's comments on it. Any other commissioners? We're adjourned.